All right. Welcome, everyone. This is our budget meeting, the second budget hearing. This is our final budget hearing. So if we can please call the roll.
Mayor Bright Cruz,
Here.
Vice Mayor Albritton,
Present.
Councilmember Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Here.
Councilmember Kaczynski. We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Will please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we expect David to join in for anything? Or should
Not
I
for the
make a
budget.
motion to it?
Yeah, can I make a motion to excuse David?
I was just about to do that. I'll
No.
second it.
Yes.
Keith just
We have a
reminded.
motion, a second, to excuse David Kaczynski, who's out of town on a health emergency.
Yes.
If we can please call the roll.
Okay. Would you like me to read the first item, Mayor?
No, please call the roll
Oh,
on
I'm sorry.
excusing David
That's right.
Kaczynski.
Councilmember Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Albritton.
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, Mayor, welcome to the final stop on a journey that began back in February with staff.
Nice.
After tonight, assuming things go the way are expected, we'll have a budget. That'll take effect October 1st, so staff will be working on the transition from closing out this year and beginning of the new year. And then they get, I don't know, a couple of days off before we start prepping for the next year's budget cycle. But I want to thank you all for certainly your cooperation and your input throughout the process. It's been very collaborative as we've gone along. I think we've captured the goals of the council and what residents are looking for, and we've done it in a fiscally responsible way. So my thanks to the council, but my even deeper thanks to Emil for leading that charge, for Rich, Ariana, and Vanessa working with him. That finance department works incredibly well together, and for the rest of us, it makes our jobs easier. So thank you all for that.
Yes, thank you all. Appreciate it.
And other than that, I'll turn it over to Emil for tonight's presentation, unless you want Russell to read it into record first, however you want to do it, Mayor.
Yeah, please, Russell, if you would do that.
Okay, I'll read the resolution. It's a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving and adopting the final millage rate for taxation of real property lying within the boundaries of the Town of Southwest Ranches for the fiscal year 2023 through 2024, commencing October 1st, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Mayor, would you like me to also read the ordinance title, or do you want to have it separately?
Keep them separate.
I think, yeah, since one's a resolution, one's an ordinance, let's keep them separate.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Emil, if you can please give us an overview of this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Andy. We wouldn't have been able to get where we are now without council directive, specifically after our one-on-one meetings. The meetings with every one of the departments and staff have worked diligently, on days and nights, and as proof, I do have, before we jump into the presentation, good news is the fact that we have been able to finalize the implementation of the budget software. It was on target, so we had it targeted to finish it by this fiscal year end. We finalized the last portion of it in September. At this point in time, we only just doing our check and balances as to what's working, what's not, if there's anything that needs to be done. But essentially, we have taken a quick look at what would the budget be once we have this software in place into next year. So I just want to just share that with the public and council.
Awesome.
With that said, and we're going to jump into the presentation, we made this to go straight into the source as to what has changed rather than going and revisiting what the previous presentations were in the past. Again, this is the first slide indicating what we're here for. This is the second and final hearing. It's required by Florida statutes for us to do this. And then with that, we're going to the second slide. How did we get here? It's the last portion of it. We already did the final budget advertisement, which is required for this one hearing. And now with that, we're going to the next slide. This is pretty much what has changed from July 27 till today. I'm not going to go into detail into the first three columns, but on the last one, which is where we are now, what changed from the previous hearing, the first budget hearing, is essentially we put the money back for the surface material replenishment for the equestrian park, plus an additional 3,000. So that's what changed, and it's the amount indicated when essentially, if we go back from the preliminary to today, it increased by an additional 3,000. And that would not represent any changes to the millage, would not represent any changes to the unassigned fund balance. We were able to get that from within the budget of this year. And just to highlight the fact that on the second column, on the budget workshop for the speed signs, we changed the language to represent essentially what this money is coming from. It's coming from non-ad valorem revenue, and as I was indicated by council, is from the recovery lien money that was essentially received from previous years. With that, we're going to the next slide. And we jump into the two items that we've been presented here to council is the millage and the budget adoption. This is the final millage rate. And no changes as I indicated on the initial third slide. We remain with the same millage rate of 3.90, which is the one essentially adopted last year as well. What has been for the last 5 years, the graph represents the changes up and downs, essentially bringing this down to the lowest it's been here since 2018. And now we're going to that second item, which is the budget adoption.
Mayor, if we're going to discuss that, can we read it into the record?
Sure.
Or do you want to vote on the millage first and then?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's close out the one, and then we'll do the second presentation.
So we have a
right.
motion and a second.
So hold on just a minute. So let's discuss, and we'll vote on the resolution of the millage, and then we'll move on to the next item. Is there any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have
Yes,
one.
Go ahead.
On the surface material replenishment, where we increased it by 20,000 to cover the playground.
Right.
I thought that was coming out of the, like it says, the speed signs, not ad valorem
The
revenue.
recovery.
And it doesn't say that, it just says decrease. Is that,
No, the non-ad valorem was, I just wanted to make sure that we have the right language, as what's been presented to the public and council. As it was indicated on the budget workshop, we wanted to make sure that we do not use any terminology that is actually indicating a different approach. So I just mentioned that I changed the language that read lien money on that column to non-ad valorem. It's coming from the lien recovery money, but the right terminology is essentially unassigned fund balance.
Right.
So non-ad valorem revenue. On the 20,000, it happens that we had already budgeted the 17,000 that it was reduced during the budget workshop. During the first budget hearing, it was requested to bring that money back. So that would not represent for us to use any money from the lien recovery money because we had already budgeted without using it. We just were moving it back into unassigned fund balance. The only increase, it's a matter of fact of $3,000, which we were able to obtain within the budget review for an additional $3,000. So there was no major impact, and there was no necessary to use any funds from any other sources.
okay, so what you're saying, the 20,000, it wasn't necessary to go into the lien balance?
Correct.
Or
That
the
amount
fund.
remains the same. I believe the last time we checked was 322.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, 322,000. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the 20,000 replenishment was not impacting millage.
It's part of the millage rate, as it was indicated in the preliminary. If if we do
No, I
have-
knew that. I wanted to make sure it
Yes.
wasn't. That was,
Yes, and it is part of the millage.
yeah.
If we do decide to use the lien recovery money, what it wouldn't happen is that 20,000, we go back into savings into the unassigned fund balance.
No, I understand all that. I get the picture. You guys understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get the picture. I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
Well, what I'm trying to say is the additional, we took the 17,000 out
Right?
because we were already allocated
Yes.
a great deal of money for the playground.
Yes.
And then we decided that we needed to put some back for
Correct.
the Sunshine Ranches one.
Correct.
But I wanted it to come out of the lien fund so there would be no millage impact. This is put back into the millage impact.
So,
It's not a lot of money, I get to
Yeah, yeah,
20,000, but
yeah.
it's the idea, that's where I wanted it. That was where I
right, so,
wanted-
okay, so I follow what you're saying. And I think what I'll say I'm comfortable with what Emil has done, and this is why, because he took it out, and it was not like we lowered anything, the millage or anything, because of that. It just took it out. So he's replenished the 17 something, right? What is it, 17,850, and then put in 2150 on top of that, which is not going to have any impact. I do think there's some value in having it in the millage because, as we discussed in the last council, that this is really a bigger item and an ongoing item. And so I actually think it's good that it's in the budget so that it will be repeated. It's not like a one-off. It's not like something that we're buying once and therefore would take it out of the recovery fund and we're done. This is something that we need to spend more money on our parks.
Yeah, no.
And so I think it's appropriate that where it's coming out.
Okay, but just for to point out, there's two other parks that were already in the millage, so it
Yeah.
is a constant thing. I was just trying to make sure it didn't have a millage impact.
Okay.
That was my only point. The money's gonna be there no matter what. It's
Right.
just where it comes from,
Gotcha.
was all I was, that's the point I was trying to make.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Are we good?
yeah, if you guys want to keep it there, that's fine. I'm not gonna fight it. I mean, I'm just pointing out,
You know, the proposed millage rates and historical millage rates are a wonderful thing. I mean, we live in a place where taxes continuously go up all around us. Over the last 4 years, we've done nothing but keep it stable or lower it. So, and I'm not going to take credit. This isn't the council. This is the hard work of our town employees, because this is all money that the town employees spend to get things done in town. So great job, Andy, great job, Emil. This is phenomenal. It's great at being the third lowest in Broward County.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your hard work. And council, the guidance as well comes from us, so congratulations on a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, great point, Bob. Absolutely, especially, inflation and all those things that have really rocketed up, and we're still able to maintain that. It's a real testament to the team. All right. Any public comment on the millage?
I was confused on this item before you had your conversation, and now I'm bewildered.
Good.
Is it that we have 17 plus 3, and then we're taking 20 from additionally for 37 or 40? I don't understand how we're getting to it, because all I'm hearing is circular
I'll explain.
discussions. And this goes back to what I've been saying. More knowledge put down in writing on the paper is better than less. And what we have is less on this. And I will continue to say this in the next section also. We've got a big puddle of money here, and I don't know where it's all coming from. And I know that it's not going to impact the millage rate. So therefore, I don't think it should have been discussed here. It should have been discussed as part of the budget and the line items and how we get to those line items. And having big puddles of money is not what I like to see. And I am very bewildered as to this little discussion you had. And the way it was just said by Emil confused me even more. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. I'll just say that this item was in the original budget at 17,850, coming out of our millage. And in the initial discussion, it was cut back. It was not significant enough to actually change the millage rate. But it was a millage item that came out, and then after further discussion, rather than taking out the 17,850, we're putting in 20. So the net difference is the 2150. That's the only difference. It's not 37. Now it's 20, and the net difference from the very start to where we are now is the 2150.
I can add to that, Mayor, to clarify it, that 17 was allocated to Country Estates Park, and we pulled it because we already previously allocated over 40,000 to the park to replenish everything. We're putting back we're putting the 20 back, and we're allocating that now to the equestrian park. So
Great point.
if that clears up any.
Yeah, that's great.
Or it may make confusion more, I don't know.
No, I think that's helpful. I think that's helpful. All right. Any other council comment? Seeing none, if we can please call the roll.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Albritton?
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. If we can please read into the record item number 6.
Item number 6 is an ordinance of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the budget of the Town of Southwest Ranches for fiscal year 2023 through 2024, commencing October 1st, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024. Providing for a budget basis, providing for expenditure of funds, providing for carryover funds, providing for notice, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any council comment on this item? Yeah, we will. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Emil.
Okay, so we jump into that final item here for discussion and approval and adoption. There hasn't been any changes whatsoever from the budget, from the first budget hearing, with the exception of a reclassification of move of that 20,000 from one place to another, which we're going to get to that point. So going to the next slide. This is just indicating as to where the funds come from, and we have broken it down to make it more transparent for the public and council as to identify the total amount of the budget. And then where do the funds come from? Jumps from how do we spend those funds, which is essentially broken down into this pie. The change that I was mentioning first is essentially that same 20,000, since we had already presented the budget on the first hearing. The amount changed from the non-operating expenses into the operating expenses. That's essentially the only change. It's just that it went from the non-operating into the operating expenses. So if we compare that to the previous slide, that 20,000 is the difference if someone happens to go back in and compare the two pipes. And with that, it concludes our presentation. So we're here just waiting for council to process with the ordinance.
Great. Thank you, Emil. Any further comment from the council? Seeing none, any public comment on the item?
North Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. As I've said every year almost, I hate puddles of money. The trouble is that this year is starting to become ponds of money, not puddles. I would like for this council to instruct that next year, as they did last year, which was not taken into effect, that all of the projects and stuffs that are approved be put into a spreadsheet saying that XYZ is being done and it's costing $30,000, this one's costing $10,000, this one's costing, and then a line item which says that it's $110,000 matches the bottom number on the bottom exactly. more knowledge is better than less knowledge. And having the puddles in the past is now turning into ponds of money. And I don't want to see it turn into the Great Lakes, where we go back to having a 3-page budget for millions of dollars and saying, this is what it is, and that's what, and you're never going to figure it out. That's what it is. I want to be able to look at it and not have questions. And I think a lot of people would like to see non-questions. Just like I have this question about, and I'm still not correct as to what the stuff for the parks. I know it's going to get done. I know the money's approved, but I don't know where it's coming from and how it got bounced around and back and forth until it got to where it's at. And I know some of it's coming from the forfeiture funds, and I know some's coming from ad valorem taxes, but I don't know what parts are which at this point. And there's no document that says what parts are which, as far as I know. And I think this needs to be done and corrected, and this town council say more knowledge is better than less knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Newell. Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment closed. So, Emil, along those same lines, I've seen these spreadsheets in the past of where it's across the top, it's by year, and then each row is the different projects, and it talks about where the funding is going to be coming from, whether it's coming from a grant, whether it's coming from the operating fund, whether it's coming from some like the transportation fund or some other fund. And so I feel like we've got that document, but
We do. There is, on one of the first tabs of the budget, there is a sheet that actually provides the summary of all the capital improvement projects as well as the program modifications. On that page, it delineates what the sources are coming from, and it have an acronym of abbreviation of
Right.
what this stands for.
that's what
So in addition to that, if on that sheet, it indicates as to what department is working on or responsible for that project, if you jump into that specific department, then you will have one sheet specifically associated or related to that project, a capital improvement project. It has those costs broken down by parts, survey, construction, planning, and then on that same sheet, in addition to the summary sheet, also indicates what the sources of those projects are for. If we get in any grants, the portion associated to the grant and the contribution that the town is actually putting to match that.
right.
And at the same time, it also has an explanation, which on the summary sheet does not include. The CIP sheet does include a detailed explanation as to what the project is about, location, and the timeline for its completion.
So I'm wondering if we don't need to take out the whole thing, but maybe for the Parks and Recreation piece, let's pull out that piece of it and pull out the CIPs that are associated with it. And if we could let's get a copy of that so that Newell can take a look at it. And then I'd like to get Newell's feedback on it, because from my perspective, obviously we're not trying to hide anything. But if we're not communicating it properly, I'd like to understand where we're missing it, because I know we're trying, and I think we've got something that's close. But let's find out if there's a gap there or not, so we can kind of resolve this, and it's not every year looking at it. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So Newell, if you'd be willing to take a look at that and provide some feedback, I would appreciate it. Great, thank you. All right. Any other final comment from the council on this item? Seeing none, if we can please call the roll.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Albritton?
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion adjourned?
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. We will take a break here, and the regular council meeting will start at 7 p.m.
Got a minute?